Welcome to our first AbleCon session, an overview of Able accounts. Following my presentation on Able United, I'll have the pleasure of speaking to one of our brand ambassadors, Leo Doucette, who manages multiple Able accounts for the organization he works for, as well as for a group home he administers. First, for those of you that are not familiar, let's provide an overview of Florida's Disability Savings Program. Share screen. So kind of an outline of what we're going to be discussing about is the history and legislation that made ABLE possible, looking at how it's managed here in the state of Florida, talk about who's eligible to actually open and enroll in an ABLE account, as well as who can manage it, how it works with public benefits like Medicaid, SSI, and then we'll talk about actually enrolling into the program. We'll be able to answer some of your Q&A questions at the end of this, and we'll bring Leo to do that. So what is ABLE? ABLE is actually an acronym for Achieving a Better Life Experience. It was made possible through a piece of federal legislation that passed in December of 2014 that allowed states to create a tax advantage savings and investment account specifically for the disability community. It added a new section to the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529A, with the goal to help support individuals' independence, health, and quality of life. This financial product is similar to other financial products like a 529 college savings account, a special needs trust, a Roth IRA, kind of rolled into one. The state of Florida passed its own legislation in July 2015 to allow the state of Florida to create this program. It created a nonprofit direct support organization under the Florida Prepaid College Board. It launched a year later on July 1, 2016. So you can see Florida Prepaid actually manages this program for the state of Florida. They historically have had a huge success in helping over 1 million families save for higher education expenses, and now they're helping the disability community save for a variety of qualified disability expenses. I do want to make a note, we are not the ABLE Trust. ABLE Trust has had a huge long history of helping Floridians find employment, and they really are employment focused. Able United, although we share ABLE, we're savings focused. And so we're not an ABLE Trust account, we're not the ABLE Trust, but we are a separate organization that shares a similar name and both help the same type of population. And what's really great about ABLE accounts and the history of them is this really is a grassroots movement that started in the Down syndrome community, where families gathered around a dining room table and wanted to start saving without negatively impacting their child's future. Through their hard work and advocacy, ABLE came to fruition. At that dining room table was Jen Secor and her son, Sean. This picture in the far, top left, Jen currently serves as a board member, but was one of the key advocates to make this a possibility. But when it did pass, it actually opened the doors for a lot of individuals outside of just the Down syndrome community. So for example, Alicia here on the bottom wants to put money aside to help save for a wheelchair accessible vehicle. On the top, Elliot, along with his mom, Sandra, although he's not on public benefits, utilizes the ABLE account to help pay for a variety of expenditures, including help offset some of his DJing costs. As you can see, ABLE has helped a broad community outside of individuals just in the disability community. So now let's talk about who's actually eligible to open an ABLE account, as well as who can manage it. It's important to know, although you can have multiple checking or savings account, an individual is only allowed one ABLE account nationwide. And remember, we're the state of Florida's ABLE program. Each state can set up and manage their own program. So one, for an individual to enroll in the Able United program, they do have to be a Florida resident. We are launched by Florida. We're supported by the legislator to allow this program to exist. And so we do limit enrollment to individuals who reside in Florida. The next true for all ABLE programs. It's based on federal law. One is the individual does have to have a severe diagnosis or disability with onset prior to age 26. It doesn't matter their current age now. We have a 3-month-old in the program, and we have individuals in their 80s that have an ABLE account. Important note to make that age of onset is actually going up to age 46. So hopefully we'll be able to open this program to individuals who currently aren't eligible because they had a later in life diagnosis, like multiple sclerosis, early onset of Parkinson's, or other types of later onset disabilities. Also, the disability has to be severe. And by severity, we look at the Social Security standard for a child, but regardless without age. So for example, if an individual is receiving supplemental security income or Social Security disability insurance, they automatically qualify and meet that severity requirement. If they're not currently receiving either of those benefits, they can self-certify that they have a severe diagnosis. So what does that mean? If selecting that option, an individual has to state they have a physical or mental impairment that occurred prior to age 26, that it's marked in severe functional limitations, which points to the Social Security standard, as well as that disability has to last at least 12 months. So for example, it's not for an individual who maybe broke a leg or maybe even just a physical disability, but it does have to impact somebody's daily basic living. Since the individual can only have one ABLE account, one of the questions we often receive is, well, what happens if I move out of the state of Florida? Do I have to close my ABLE United account? No, you can actually keep the ABLE United account since this process is done all online. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. However, we encourage individuals to visit their state's ABLE program. A great place to go is abletoday.org to view what state's ABLE program may offer, as there may be unique tax benefits like state income tax deductions or credits. Just like Florida is the best value for Floridians, that new state you're in may be the best value for you. So let's talk about the types of disabilities that would be eligible for an ABLE account. The IRS provided 7 categories, pretty broad categories, anywhere from developmental disorders, like if you think of autism or development delays, intellectual disabilities. It can be mental health diagnosis, like a psychiatric disorder, bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD. Nervous disorders include blindness, deafness, cerebral palsy. Congenital anomalies, we already discussed the Down syndrome, for example, cystic fibrosis, and there's even another category. If you're unsure, you can use our eligibility wizard at ableunited.com. There you can go, and I'll ask you a few questions and help guide you through that process to see if you qualify for an ABLE account. Now we discuss who's eligible. It's important to know who actually owns the account. The individual with the disability is the owner of the ABLE account. They benefit from the account, but they actually own the account and the funds that are in it. However, not everybody can manage their own account. So somebody else may assist in maintaining or opening the account on their behalf. They can actually maintain authorized signatory on the account. We call this individual an authorized legal representative. The IRS has kindly provided us a hierarchy of who could serve in this capacity. This can be a legal guardian, a power of attorney, parent, spouse, sibling, grandparent, or in the case we're going to hear about later, a representative payee, whether that be as an individual or an organization. Now, there's some additional rules we'll talk about as well when it comes to a RET payee. For example, all the RET payee rules still apply, and if an individual has a RET payee and they put Social Security funds into the ABLE account, the RET payee has to be managing the ABLE account. So there's important things to consider. Also, if the individual has capacity, they can select somebody that's not on this list. So maybe they have a really good friend or a neighbor that assists them that can help them manage their ABLE account. They can actually appoint that individual if they choose to. Now that we talked about the history, eligibility, let's talk about how this account impacts, or doesn't impact, I should say, public benefits. And really, there's 2 big ones we're going to talk about: Medicaid and supplemental security income. Well, let's talk about Medicaid first. Medicaid is a federal and state program that helps pay medical costs for some individuals with limited incomes, resources, or significant hindrances, such as disabilities. Florida has what we call home and community-based waivers. One of the most popular ones is the iBudget and long-term care. These sets of Medicaid services provide a very robust set of services that your normal health care wouldn't provide. However, they do have asset or resource limits, basically how much money somebody can have. They typically also have income restrictions. ABLE solves how much money you can have. Typically, those amounts can range $2,000 or more. The great thing is funds in the ABLE account, or even taken out of the ABLE account, are disregarded as a resource when looking at eligibility for Medicaid. The concern when this program first launched was, what about Medicaid recovery? The great news is Florida has passed laws to not allow Medicaid to file a claim directly on the ABLE account. So the question we often get was, well, what happens to the funds in the account if the individual has passed away? Generally, those funds can still be used to pay outstanding qualified disability expenses. We'll talk about those later, but that can even include funeral and burial. After all those expenditures have been paid, then those leftover funds should go to the estate of the beneficiary. From there, it may be divvied out to additional family members, or if they're over the age of 55 or meet other types of rules, that funds may go to the estate and Medicaid may file a state recovery on there. So it's important to consider if individuals over 55 and has a lot of funds in their ABLE account, starting to utilize them to help them achieve a better life experience. Now that we talked about Medicaid, let's talk about supplemental security income. So that's a federal supplement program that provides cash to meet basic needs for housing. It also used to include housing and food, but coming in September, they're actually going to remove that food requirement. So now it's just to help pay for housing. The great thing is generally funds withdrawn again or even in the ABLE account are disregarded as a resource for supplemental security income. Once again, SSI looks about how much money you have, and typically that's $2,000 for a single household. So if you have more than $2,000, you may jeopardize or not even qualify for SSI. However, there are some additional rules to consider. As it relates to the ABLE account, the first $100,000 doesn't count towards that $2,000 resource limit. So it allows individuals to save up to $100,000 in their ABLE account. Now, if they're not worried about SSI, they can actually let this account go up to $418,000 before they can no longer contribute. And we'll talk about contributions later. Also, if individuals are using funds in their ABLE account to pay for housing, they just have to make sure they do it in the same month. However, if funds are withdrawn and held past the end of the month and they're for housing or non-qualified expenses, those will count as a resource. So make sure if you're using your ABLE account to pay for housing, just have the ABLE account pay it directly via a check or a systematic withdrawal from your account. Also, just a reminder, ABLE accounts don't shelter income. So if an individual was earning income through employment, or maybe they were receiving unearned income like child support, if those funds were directly deposited into ABLE account, they would still count as income or unearned income. So that's important things to note. However, if you have a family member that wants to just gift you money into your ABLE account, that would not count as income. If you're on SSI and you're interested in having an ABLE account, we encourage individuals to check out the PALMS manual. Social Security PALMS, or Program Operations Manual System, is an online tool that Social Security uses to demonstrate how they look at ABLE accounts as well as anything that impacts SSI. There's also rules when it comes to representative payees who manage this account, and the same representative payee rules that would apply to an account apply to the ABLE account as well, such as titling, for example, or how you utilize funds in the ABLE account and making sure that that beneficiary doesn't have access to the ABLE account. So just keep that in mind if you're using ABLE account to keep leftover SSI funds or directly deposit SSI funds into the ABLE account. Now that we talked about eligibility and we talked a little bit about how this works with public benefits, how does an individual actually get started? So let's talk about enrollment and account management. The best place to start is our website, ableunited.com. There you would go, there's tons of resources. That's also where you go to enroll in the program, manage the account. Able United is where you get started. Generally, banks and credit unions do not offer ABLE accounts. This is a state-run program, and so to access it, you do have to go online. Unfortunately, you can't go down to your local bank to establish this account. So what will you need when you go to open an account? Just like if you're opening any financial product, there's some basic information we're going to need to know about you, as well if someone's opening this on your behalf, their information as well. So an email address, date of birth, physical address, social security number for the individual who's going to own the account or the individual with the disability. If it's somebody else managing it, their personal information as well. You have to go through those eligibility requirements. So you have to select which diagnosis they may have. if they're on SSI, SSDI, or self-certified that they meet the requirements. After we verify your identity by asking you a handful of questions, you move to the next part, which is adding your bank account information and contributing at least $25 to get started. Now, when it comes to entering your banking account information, we use something called Plaid Link. It makes it very easy for us to connect your bank account quickly and securely if you have a device that already knows your login information. If you do not happen to have your login information, there is a way to where you could submit a voided check or a bank statement. But Plaid Link is the preferred method because it's a secure way to connect your bank account directly to your Able account. And that's primarily the reason of how you're going to put money into the account and how you can also take money out. After you've selected your bank account and put the minimum $25, you're going to be able to select where that $25 is either saved or invested. So let's talk about contributions into the account. As I mentioned, generally contributions are considered a completed gift and not income to the individual with a disability. So grandparents, family members, they want to give you birthday money and they contribute it directly to your Able account, that's not going to count as income. However, in some situations, if they gave you the money first and you deposit it in like a checking account and then transfer it over, that may count as income. So use your Able account to be able to receive funds directly. Now, there are some rules and limits. First, $18,000 per calendar year can go into an Able account, and that's from all sources. So if you put $10,000 of your own money, a family puts $5,000 in, so you're at $15,000. The most that can go in for the rest of the calendar year is $3,000, so $18,000 total. And that resets every year. So you can put $18,000 in this year, $18,000 in the next year, and occasionally that amount goes up as well. If individuals have leftover 529 college savings plans, maybe they either didn't go to college or they have a family member that might have leftover funds, those can be rolled over to an Able account. Also, individuals can contribute Social Security funds, either leftover funds or directly deposit. And as I mentioned, if there's a rep pay involved, they need to be the one managing the Able account. If an individual is working and not saving for retirement, they can actually contribute above that $18,000 limit. That amount varies depending on what the previous year's federal poverty limit for a single household income was. This year, that amount is $14,580, or lesser of their income, whatever is the less of. Once again, earned income still counts as earned income. Able accounts don't shelter that. After you get up an account set up, you can actually launch an online gifting portal, and it's a great way for family members to contribute to your account online via ACH. That way they don't have to mail in a check. Cuts down on cost of postage, and well, it makes it a little bit easier to get funds in your account. So once you contribute money, the question is like, what are you going to do? Are you saving? Are you investing? Are you doing a little bit of both? You have the flexibility to do whatever works for you and your needs. So we have a range of savings and investment options. One, the basic FDIC insured savings fund, where you can chuck money in. It will earn a little bit of interest each month. Maybe you want to actually invest those funds. We have what we call pre-designed portfolio options that kind of are based on how risky you want to be in the market. So conservative, moderate, and growth. Or maybe you're very familiar with investing and want to kind of create your own custom portfolio. With that, you can select between the FDIC options, the pre-designed portfolio options, or any of the underlying funds that make up that pre-designed portfolio options, such as our money market fund, which is kind of like the state of Florida's money market fund. We have Vanguard options, it's a US stock and US bond option. Those are very broad-based mutual fund type products. We also have an international stock option through BlackRock. So you really get to pick and choose if this is a savings account, an investment account, or both. Now that you put money in there and it's growing, how do you get money out and what can you use it for? So the withdrawal process is kind of threefold. One, you can request a check via ACH back to a connected bank account. That usually takes 2 to 3 business days. We also have a really cool feature called a prepaid card. Sorry, my light just went off. That prepaid card can be set up and it'll be tied directly to your Able account, and then you can load it with however much money you need and be used anywhere Visa debit cards are accepted. So it allows individuals a little financial flexibility without giving them all the money in their ABLE account with one swipe. Individuals can also request a check online. That takes 5 to 7 business days or more, depending on the mail time. That's a great way if you're paying for housing-related expenses. You can just send in a check to your landlord or pay your mortgage. Or you can use it to pay for property taxes or other housing-related expenses, or anywhere else that you need to send a check in. But just be mindful that it does take time to get there. Things to consider when making a withdrawal from your account is that generally earnings on the account are tax-free. So that means you don't have to pay taxes on them as long as you use them for qualified disability expenses. You get to pick and choose where money comes out. And as always, keep documentation. We won't ask for what you use the funds for, but the IRS may, or Social Security Administration if you're on SSI. But what can you actually use the funds for? The Treasury provides 13 broad categories on what these funds could be used for, but let's do a little bit of a deeper dive. Let's talk about health. So if you think about somebody's health needs, this could be a copay. Maybe it's wellness, like a massage or just Band-Aids. Pretty broad. Education. Maybe it's going back to school. Maybe it's paying for private school, a tutor, or maybe it's technology to help you with education, like a laptop. We already talked about housing, but housing is very broad. Maybe it's a down payment on a home. Maybe it's help to modify the home to make it more accessible. It could be property tax or somebody's paying their fair share of rent. Transportation. Some of our biggest success stories have come from individuals actually using their ABLE account to purchase a vehicle for the first time. But maybe it can also be used for ride-sharing services. Legal fees, maybe setting up a special needs trust, assistive technology and personal support. So maybe you need that assistance to help you navigate through life, or maybe you just need the technology to do it. This can even be used for funeral and burial. The Treasury put out these examples, but they also said it's to be construed broadly and can even be paid for basic living expenses like groceries or clothing. The only example the Treasury did provide is what if an individual needed to be more independent and help navigating their community? Then a cell phone and a cell phone plan would be a qualified disability expense. As long as the primary benefit is for the individual with a disability and it's being used to help improve or maintain their health, independence, or quality of life, then it's a qualified disability expenses. So the question is, do we have to file taxes on that? The answer is typically not. You will receive tax forms if you make a withdrawal from your ABLE account. A 1099 QA shows how much you had in distributions from that ABLE account during the year. There's no taxes on the earnings as long as you could have receipts to say, yes, this was for qualified disability expenses. Also, if you establish an account, you'll get a 5498 QA, and that's us telling the IRS that this individual with this social has created an ABLE account, where they created the account with, and the balance of that account. So always keep documentation from when you withdraw from the account. Once again, we're not going to ask for it, but the IRS or Social Security Administration can. So they might be saying, this sounds too good to be true. Well, what's the cost associated with the program? The great thing is it's free to enroll in the ABLE United program. Depending on your investment or savings selection, there may be what we call an investment administration fee, which is, if you have $10,000 in the account, after fees, you receive about $29 coming out of that. Our FDIC option actually has no fees. If you want paper statements mailed to you, there's a $10 annual fee for that. And the flexibility that ABLE Visa prepaid card offers does cost $250 a month. We truly try to make this the best value for Floridians by not charging application fees, monthly or yearly maintenance fees, as well as no paper check requests. We have the backing and history with the Florida prepaid program that tries to make this the best value for Floridians. As I mentioned, ABLE United is the best place to get a hold of us. Maybe you want to have more specific questions or want to have a one-off conversation. You can actually go to ableunited.com/contact. From there, you can actually schedule a meeting with me to discuss your unique situation. Now, once again, I can't provide financial or legal advice, but I can provide some education and resources that may be beneficial for you. We also have Spanish resources on our website. We have live chat, as well as customer service is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. One important thing I want to iterate is, in case you didn't know, we have our spring campaign going on, Save Your Way. It's an ability to allow you to try the Able account and get $50 just for doing so. Now, this offer is only good till June 30th, 2024. So make sure you go online, enroll in the account, and then we'll put $50 in. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to see that reflected on your account. There's no promo code required, so it's a great way to save. So once again, I'll leave you with this. Thank you so much, and hopefully you're enjoying presentations. Now, this time, I'm going to go ahead and ask Leo to come back and join us here and maybe talk a little bit about your experience with Able accounts and how you have used Able United. So, Leo, welcome. First of all, let's see as it started. How did you hear about Able United? And Leo, you are muted, sir.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here with you today and to speak about the benefits and how great Able has been for my managing of our clients' lives and their daily caretaking needs. So how did I hear about Able United? Well, for many years, first let me back up and say that I've been in the caretaking business for the developmentally disabled for over 23 plus years. Most of that, except for the last 8 years, because Able came into the picture, I was frustrated for our clients primarily. As a group home administrator, and I guide our group home managers to make sure that our clients stay below the Medicaid threshold. And we've been doing that again for 23 years plus. But my frustration level was because the only avenue up until 2016 was a special needs trust for our clients. Special needs trust, those who have tried to set one up, are expensive. And they continue to be expensive on an annual basis because it's court filings, it's documentation, etc. And it's handled by attorneys. Attorneys are not cheap. So my frustration level was I had a client who was at a $25, almost $3,000 level, and they kept trying to buy couches, chairs, TVs, clothes. They had, and we called it a spend down, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Every client that didn't have a special needs trust, they had to go on what we call a spend down. Well, we have now 140. We had a little bit less 23 years ago. But what it amounted to was a massive management administrative headache for me because it was not just spending money. It was, what does the client need? What are their needs? And so we had to massively spend down, hurry up and spend, and get it below $2,000. And it got sometimes ridiculous. They have everything they need. They don't need anything more. Why are we just wasting money? Well, we don't want them to lose their Medicaid eligibility. So we got to do what we got to do. And so we did. Enter Able, like a breath of fresh air. And I too said, no, this is too good to be true. There's got to be a catch. And so I tested the waters. And how did I hear? Well, I heard about it because we're part of organizations throughout the state of Florida. And because it was new, they weren't necessarily pushing it. They were like, you need to look into this. You need to look into this. Well, hell, that's what I did. I looked into it. And when I looked into it, again, I said to myself, I don't know. Who else is doing this? And so I did my investigation, and come to find out, those that were smart were doing it, and those that were not in the know were not. And so I said, okay, well, let me check it out. So we had a few clients. We started it. It was all paper back then. No, the internet was really not, well, the programs hadn't been developed, put it that way. So it was all paper. So we had to transmit by paper. Everything was, and we had to do it by power of attorney because the rules, again, had not been expanded as well. But we did that, and it was easy. And so I'm like, okay, well, it's like insurance. Yeah, it's good to have, but when you need it, is it going to be there? So I tested the waters there. I said, okay, Jeannie, she needs a couch, or I'm not Scott, the chair. That Jeannie was the one with the chair, and she was a big lady, but you know, so she went through chairs a lot, and so So we did that. We went out and we requested, we got the invoice. It was okay, it's going to be about $600 for this nice recliner. And yep, Jeannie picked it out. That's what she wanted. And so we didn't know how long it was going to take and everything. So the agency advanced the funds, and we're like, you know what, worst case, we have to kind of take it out of her, account every now and then, our what we call our pooled client account, because we had a pooled client account, not just the able account. And so it took about a week, maybe I would say, and we got a check. We're like, this is for real. This is for real. The check cleared.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of how it all started. And then so
Wow.
we grew from there. Now this was 2016. I was one of the first ones
Yes.
involved with Able. And so we have currently 140 clients in our group homes
Wow.
and apartments. And of those 140, now, not all of them have a lot of money. So, it's like our society. Some have a lot of money, some don't have a lot of money, and some are able to save and some are not. But we have currently over 90 plus clients and live with us that have an Able account, that I am and my executive director, we have a joint what we call ALR, account, so that should something happen to me, we have a backup. And so my executive director, but I pretty much handle and administer it because I'm the CFO for our agency. And so collectively, those 90 clients now have upwards of $2 million in
Wow.
their accounts. $2 million. And as I was discussing and planning for the needs of our clients, even though they don't have spend downs anymore, it was still like, they got money to spend, guys. So if they need anything, hello, please let me know. And some of our group home managers were like, really? They have that much? Oh, well, I know it. And this one has this and this one has that need. And I said, well, look, every month, what we try to do to administer this is we have started a process whereby we educate our group home managers, and because turnover at a group home manager level is pretty high, because caretaking is hard, as
Yes.
some
Yes,
of
it
those
is.
that are
Burnout. Mm-hmm.
they know what it's like. And so every now and then we have to re-educate, some of our group home managers, because sometimes the families are not as involved as they could be or should be. So that's kind of how it all started. Now, and about a year later is when I got involved and started my own group home business in Ocala, Florida. An opportunity came about and I jumped at it because it was my previous employer who was shutting down a group home. And because of that opportunity, I said, wait a minute, when I was a CFO over there, that home was making money. And I know all those clients, I know all that staff, I'm going to take it over. So I did. And needless to say, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
That's great.
Other than joining Able, an ALR for Able. But basically, we also have, I believe, 5 clients that have an Able account there. And it also has benefited them significantly, and of course, sheltered their Medicaid program. So I think I went a long way to answer your question, John. I apologize.
Thank you for the trip. No, I think it was very good, because that is something newer. Leo was one of the first organizations to say, hey, we see the value of Able accounts. How can we set these up? Now, over the last couple of years, we've hopefully done a better job of that. So if you're interested in setting up Able accounts on behalf of your organization, there's now a online process, believe it or not, Leo. We still have paper forms if that's a route individuals want to go. And I encourage everybody to go to that contact us page on the Able United website, schedule a meeting with me. We can kind of go through everything. I can provide you with that information to get you started. And as of date, I think we have close to 90 organizations across the state that are just like Leo's, serving combined close to 900 individuals just as an organizational ALR. So it's a great way for us to partner, and to your point, to be able to keep them eligible for their Medicaid expenses. Leo, you gave us a great example of somebody utilizing these funds to help pay for a chair or something they needed. Is there any other type of expenses that you guys have used for
Yes.
funds in the ABLE account to help pay
Yeah.
for?
John, thank you. I realized I had forgotten to mention something very important. So pre-ABLE, what would happen is either because mom and dad, if there was a family involved with our clients' lives, or because there was no family and we, the agency, just kind of dropped the ball a little bit, we didn't plan properly for the funeral expenses, right? We
Yep.
didn't plan, or we didn't think about it, or sometimes, death occurs when you're not planning to do other things. And so
Correct.
unfortunately, for our clients, they had no prepaid funeral. There was nothing. Well, under the old special needs trust, once the client is dead, you cannot take any more money. That S&T cheats to Medicaid. It goes back to Medicaid. It's not your money. It's not the family's money. It's nobody's. It's not the client's money, but it's the state. So that was a problem for us because we're like, well, they had $10,000 in that account, and now they can't because they're dead. And the ALR, by the way, the ALR's function stopped, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Whoever the special need, they have to just administer, close it down, send the money back to Medicaid. So that was a problem for us. Again, enter ABLE. All of a sudden, and it's happened quite a few. Unfortunately, this year alone, in the last 9 months, we've had five
Oh, wow.
clients pass away. We got on an aggressive, not just because they have an ABLE doesn't mean they don't need a funeral account. So it's always better to plan ahead, look ahead, and do something ahead of time instead of being forced to do it. So a couple of years ago, we went on this process where we reached out to all the family members, if they had some, and started doing the cleaning up, so to speak. Most of them didn't have a funeral account. If they had an ABLE can pay for it. It's not a matter. In the past, sometimes families said, we don't have the money to do prepaid, and neither does the client. And so that was an issue. But now we've had 5. Of those 5, a few of them did not have a prepaid funeral account because not everybody, it's hard for family members to think about planning for death. And they don't want to do it. They didn't want to really engage with us. And so
that's it. A question came in, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, it's a hard concept to deal with.
Hard topic. And so that's a good example of a big need that was fixed by ABLE, because ABLE, you can post-death, you can still utilize the funds to take care of the funeral expenses. And it doesn't go back to Medicaid.
Yeah. And I see that question just came in, is what happens after the death of a designated beneficiary? And to Leo's point, right? So one of the great benefits of the ABLE account is that you can actually use this post-death to pay for those final expenses, whether that be funeral and burial. Maybe they had an outstanding bills that need to be paid. They can still utilize funds in that ABLE account. But if there ever comes a point where there's still a balance, then it has to go to an estate. And so either a family member or somebody that has some type of beneficial interest in their that person's belongings, they can open up an estate, and it would go to that estate to be distributed how that estate needs to be handled. And so that's an important thing to know about. And so, Leo, that wraps up about our time. I thank you so much. You did a great job of kind of explaining from your role how organizations can get involved in establishing these accounts. Once again, I want to remind everybody, we're sorry we're not able to get everybody's questions during this presentation, but we'll do our best to get back to you to answer those questions. So thank you, everybody who submitted questions. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break, and from here, we're actually going to go into Special Needs Trust, a guide to special needs trusts and ABLE accounts with board-certified elder law attorney Howard Crooks. He's going to kind of dive into a first-party trust, a third-party trust, which Leo was talking primarily a first-party trust, but third-party where maybe you have a family member that wants to leave an inheritance to somebody, and he'll kind of discuss those differences, and then also how you can use those with an ABLE account to pay for a variety of expenditures. So, Leo, thank you again so much for your time, and until take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you so much.